Welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. After so long, years of working on He-Man, it might go straight to Netflix. Now, I think this article from The Hollywood Reporter seems to have kind of gone by the wayside for a lot of people. I don't see it really reported anywhere currently, but The Hollywood Reporter have sources telling them that Sony are looking to farm out the He-Man franchise to Netflix instead of releasing on the big screen. Such a shame. Friend of the channel, guy who designed these two images right here, also did the epic, dark concept art for Masters of the Universe. You would have seen it online. Really dark fantasy. Paul Gerard is the artist. He worked on something incredible. Never really got picked up either. And now it's looking like the sort of light-hearted, more PG approach that they were going for, Sony, might end up on Netflix. Because this is what the future, I would imagine, of the industry is going in. They don't like to take risks. The movie industry, that's why we see so many reboots and remakes now. We just don't get risks taken anymore. And those that do take risks actually do see a huge return. One such risk in the last couple of years would have been A Quiet Place. That's considered to be a risk. It was made on a limited budget. And look at the huge return it got. Crazy. So let's get into this article because this is relevant. It's very interesting industry news. And a bunch of you guys really do like this. In fact, I had a bunch of people, due to the Terminator rights situation deep dive video, become patrons as a result of it. So I know you guys do like this. So it says, after developing its He-Man franchise for years, Sony may take its Masters of the Universe film direct to the streamer, which is Netflix. It's just the little headline there. So it says, call it Tom's choice. Like all the major studios, Sony Pictures is questing for new franchises. And after years of development, and it really is years, good God, this film has been in the works for a horrendous amount of time. But it says it might have one with the He-Man movie Masters of the Universe, which is already, it's got a March 2021 release date. They're really ready to go with it. But it says, but while the picture is on the calendar for release in March 2021, sources tell The Hollywood Reporter that studio chairman Tom Rothman is actually exploring the prospect of getting risk-free cash for the pricey project by making it for Netflix instead. Now, I think it's Paramount that did this with the Cloverfield Paradox movie. It's something which is becoming more the norm. I think we even thought that Overlord might go on there at one point in time. And I get it. It's smart business for a studio. They can say, right, we're going to make it for this much. We're going to sell it to Netflix for this much. So we know we'll get this much. Good to go. Whereas if you release it in theaters, it's a case of, we're making it for this much, but will it actually make money? Especially in this world of just rampant comic book movies. Which I feel is a shame. If this happens, I don't feel like we're ever going to get this Conan movie that we've been wanting for a long time. This King Conan. Because this could have been a resurgence and almost an entryway for King Conan to be made. So anyway, it continues. A studio source says that talks are preliminary, but such a deal would make Sony the next studio after Paramount to start making movies belonging exclusively, or almost exclusively, to the streamer. Because I think even Annihilation had a very limited release, and that was Paramount as well, off the top of my head. So there's the dilemma. Seek a studio or financier to partner on the project, holding on to various rights and territories, or make a safe deal with Netflix, which would not seem quite so safe if the film were a huge hit and it already was sold. Studios selling to streamers is an accelerating trend. Paramount is looking into dedicating a division to that purpose, and while a source with knowledge of the studio says Sony's TriStar label is devoting resources to streaming deals, an indie studio, A24, which we know A24 has made The Witch, Hereditary, Midsommar. They're almost like the new Blumhouse, but more indie Blumhouse-esque, whereas Blumhouse is more mainstream, I guess you could say now. They have a huge agreement with Apple to make a bunch of movies for their new streaming platform. So it says A24 inked a multi-year agreement in 2018 to produce a slate of films for Apple, which I reported on back when that came out, and I said this seems to be the kind of go-to now, because it really is. We don't know really how this is going to change the landscape of filmmaking, but inevitably the likelihood is we'll see lower budget movies being pushed onto these platforms, because obviously the studio's not going to put tens of millions of dollars into these things, like hundreds of millions anyway. It's just not going to be the case, because the return on investment is exponentially less. Now it says even Warner's may sell to outsiders, despite its parent Warner Media allocating massive resources to its own streaming service, HBO Max. Disney and Universal are likely to sit this out for now, making movies for their own services, Disney Plus and Peacock, which is Universal and things like that, debuting in 2020. Now it says as for the others, a rep involved in a number of deals, they have this backlog of films that isn't going to get made and released theatrically. After long seeing Netflix as the enemy, this person says studios are turning around and saying, let's join them because we can't beat them. Meanwhile, Netflix is said to be looking to make a quality tentpole a quarter with international appeal, creating a healthy demand. Sony has been developing Master of the Universe since 2007! I want it on the big screen, goddammit! Perhaps making it that much less appealing to sell, given that the studio finally has a version that it wants to make. But Netflix has the series She-Ra and the Princess of Power, plus the upcoming Kevin Smith He-Man animated series. So the Netflix negotiation is being handled for now by newly upped Sony Pictures Motion Picture Group co-president Sanford Panich. According to the sources, Sony wants to bolster its bottom line, in part following a significant loss on the reboot Men in Black International. Stop rebooting things then! Stop it! At an internal meeting in early October, sources say that Josh Greenstein, co-president of the group, raised concerns that the studio has spent too much on marketing, especially on titles that appeared to face headwinds leading up to release. They just keep doubling down on all this crap. The Sony talks come just a month after it sold off Harbinger, an adaptation of the Valiant Entertainment comic starring superpowered teens. While the terms of the deal aren't known, Harbinger was meant to go into production this summer or fall. Sony was actually up for sale. Or, well, it was rumoured that it was up for sale anyway, so this isn't massive surprise. But they are doing all right. I mean, this year Sony has had a major theatrical hit with Spider-Man Far From Home, which is obviously co-produced with Disney's Marvel Studios, which grossed $1.3 billion worldwide. And after a public parting over a deal gone south, which they're now back on board with, Disney and Sony are back in business for a third Spider-Man film slated for 2021. Meanwhile, Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is the year's top grossing original film at $360 million. So they're clearly doing all right, but then, I guess they would look at Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which doesn't have an awful lot of effects in. There's some action in it and things like that, and sets, and, it would have been made for a reasonable amount of money. And if it's only taking $360 million, you then have He-Man, a film which obviously will have effects. It will be a reasonably effects-heavy movie. It would have to be for it to be any good, to be fair. Because of the fantasy world that it belongs in. Even if it's practical, it's still expensive. So will they see a return on that? Who knows? From a studio perspective, it's a risk. But you must take risks. Alien was a risk. Look how amazing that turned out. A Quiet Place was a risk. Not universally loved, but it made a lot of money. So much so that it's now getting a sequel. It's such a shame that we see these time and time again, studios just absolutely bowing out of taking any form of risks at all. So He-Man might go into Netflix, which is a huge shame because it's great lore, great product. It crosses the masses of generations. So I would have loved to have seen this on the big screen. It still may be on the big screen. We haven't heard officially yet, but what do you guys think? Let me know down below in the comments. Do you want this for the film industry? Do you want it to be going to streaming platforms? Do you think this is good or bad for business? let me know. The problem is that when a film studio starts to sell things to Netflix, the competition isn't in theatres. The competition is on Netflix. And Netflix, there is no competition there because they will take multiple studios' films and just chuck it up on Netflix. So there's nothing really for the studios to then compete against and to better themselves to create good stories. So that's my issue with it. And also, there's some films that I really want to see on the big screen. So anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you're new here, make sure you do hit subscribe. You can stay up to date on the world of pop culture and movie news by hitting the bell notification icon. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and a share. And if you want to support the channel further, please do head on over to my Patreon, which is linked down below in the description box. Or cop yourself some merch, which is linked underneath every single video. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. I'm Mr. H. Take care.